So where are we? Why are we here? What are we doing?
I think it's really important that no matter how different you see the world, you come to the table. When you're all jacked up because you care about something, you want to make a difference. But the only way we're going to make a difference is if we actually have healthy conversations, laced with humor, frank, and that's what we're going to do.
To be honest, I'm just here because I like hanging out with y'all.
I like hanging out with y'all too.
I'm
I
not
just
here
want
to make a difference at all.
I just want to hang out with smart people and have nice conversations. That's about it.
And Chris.
And I
And
think, and I think for far too long, people that disagree with each other kind of learn to hate each other, and we are living proof that regardless of certain folks that may be misguided politically, we can all still be friends and still get along with one another.
Agreed. And I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I really haven't found one that I wish that a news one anyway, where I feel like I could sit at the table and hang out with these people, and I kind of feel like this is us. I like hanging out with y'all, and I hope other people would listen and be like, agree with us in the car, agree with us going to work, disagree with us in the car, disagree with us going to work, say, what the hell, Chris? All that stuff. But I like hanging out with y'all.
And I'm not attractive enough to be on TV.
He has a face for podcasting.
And I think your beard's kind of cleaned up a little.
It has. It's a little shorter. It's dapper.
Yeah, it's looking good.
like that.
It's because he's in session and he's trying to show off for the lobbyist.
Oh, that's right.
So, from those early days, the love flowed. When I sat down to write my year-end column acknowledging who are the most intriguing people of Tampa Bay, I deemed each of you as worthy of honorable mentions. And here we are now as dishonorable mention.
It's a saddest story.
I'm a bit of a hypocrite because even though I don't watch him and I don't like them as entertainment, I did appear on one.
Did you?
I know, and
really?
I'm so jealous.
I
Oh my
did.
God.
It was so funny. Well, God, that was the wrong thing to say.
Would Chris's DNA bill have helped you?
No, here's what happened. Tragically, not funny. Tragically, a man who won the Illinois lottery and moved to Tampa Bay
Oh, Shakespeare.
Oh, well,
was
poor
not,
thing.
no, that's a different guy.
Dee Dee killed him.
That's Stanley Shakespeare. No, not
I love
Stanley.
that Carla knows
I
all
remember
of this.
that guy. Anyway, this was a guy who opened a gourmet popcorn stand.
Oh, I remember
at
him.
Channel Side.
I love
And
gourmet popcorn.
He
Dill
was,
pickle's my
he was
favorite.
murdered by his sister-in-law and her boyfriend. And at the time, I was working at the Times, but I didn't really write about that story. We had other reporters. So a year or two later, maybe 3 years later, a producer from the ID Discovery Channel, is that one of your favorite channels?
It's not my
Carla?
favorite, but it's on my radar. I watch
They
it maybe when I'm
called the
sick.
paper and said, hey, can we speak to so-and-so? We're doing a story about this murder. And that person was no longer working at the paper. And so the person said, oh, no, she no longer works here. And so the guy explained that what they were looking for someone to talk about this case. And the guy at the time said, well, call Ernest Hooper. He'll do anything to be on TV. So they called me and they said, we know you didn't write about this, but are you familiar with the case? So I was like, I'm very familiar. The body was found not far from my home. And so they ended up interviewing me, and I went to a ballroom at the Holiday Inn in Brandon and spent about an hour and a half answering questions about the case.
They didn't even fly you in somewhere?
So we need to find this episode.
They were here. And so what they do is they have about, I'd say 6 to 8 questions, and they ask them at least 3 or 4 times. And each time you get better at giving the answer. I mean, like they mix it up, and you, at first you kind of don't know what's going on, but after a while you're kind of like, oh, I see what you guys are doing. And then, once you get good at answering the question, that's the take that they use in the show. And so, it's a show called Blood Relatives. You can still find it on YouTube. And one of the more interesting aspects of that appearance is that I now am registered on IMDb. You can search my name. and it'll say Ernest Hooper
I'm doing that right now.
appeared on Blood Relatives.
Let me help you out here. So I think when we're talking about media literacy, I think it goes both ways. Like, from a person who works in an office representing a company who does community relations. Yeah, they're really frustrated that they have this great walk for kids or a toy drive or something, and that doesn't get picked up because of something negative, right? So I think to your point, I think that there are a lot of stories that don't make it in the news or don't make it because they're not clickable or something else is a little bit more upsetting and we want to highlight that a little bit more, or something else is worthy of attention. But people make those decisions. There's not some like amorphous board up there that says, okay, this is what makes it onto the front page. This is what makes it onto the homepage. It's like people make those choices. So I can see how people get frustrated, but at the same time, if things are wrong, if there's something that's happening that is deserving of attention, then an editorial board makes those decisions because hopefully they have graduated from a good journalism program. They understand ethics. They understand the news industry, and they'll make a good decision on what gets prioritized. Yeah. I think the problem is you've got a lot of people out there who watched a YouTube video and think they're an expert. And I think that's disrupting the industry, and people necessarily don't understand the difference between a blogger and a journalist. Just like a lot of people on TV, especially on like Fox and CNN, they're not journalists. They are people that have other jobs. They might have been prosecutors. They might have been, whoever, and they have a show. And that is fine. I'm so glad they have a show. That's so great. But they're not trained like a journalist is trained. They didn't go to the University of Florida. They didn't go to Syracuse. They didn't go to Mizzou. Like any of the top journalism programs that really understand and teach ethics and really understand how to prioritize what gets said and how it gets said.
I want to talk about our very special trip to Tallahassee and some of the people we got a chance to meet. And, you can share your impressions of the legislators who were kind enough to come in and talk to us. Let's start with Anna Eskamani. What did you guys think of her?
Well, I went in a super fan, and I didn't think it was possible, but I think I left a bigger fan. So, I mean, yes, our ideology is very similar, but she's just so warm. She clearly has built great relationships across the aisle, which is critical. And she's passionate about the work she's doing. I'm all in. All in for Anna.
Yeah, she struck me as someone who, as I like to say, has a ticket to ride. I don't think the State House will be her last stop politically. I could see her possibly going on to a congressional seat, certainly a state Senate seat after she's turned limited out of the House. I'm assuming that she will win re-election. She seems to be pretty popular in her district. And like you said, there's an energy, a genuineness, and she has a great story being the daughter of Iranian immigrants. What did you think, Carla?
Yeah, I thought she's great. I mean, I think she has a great vibe. I really enjoy her story. I think she's pretty passionate, and she seems like an overall really cool person.
How much would you say Session has aged you so far?
I'm like waiting for the gray hairs to come out. I'm like, they're here. They're coming soon.
Just to give our listeners a perspective, the nickname I have for you is AOC because you're one of our more liberal members. Mm-hmm. But I would have to say that you're a lot smarter, more intelligent than AOC.
Ouch.
So, what, as one of the members of the minority party and as a freshman, what have you thought so far of your first session?
Thanks for that question, Rep. I'm really, I don't want to say I'm surprised by the collegiality. I'm grateful for the collegiality. I think I knew going into session that this wasn't DC. There wasn't the, us against them mentality between Republicans and Democrats. And Rep. Lavon and I have known each other for years, and I've always adored and respected him despite the, funny nicknames. But, I really embrace our relationship as being one that's a value to me. And when I got into session, the ability to work with your partners across the aisle, and of course, have moments of disagreements, but it's the notion of building bridges when you can and holding one one another accountable when you must. And I think that's been something I'm really grateful for, and I want to continue maintaining that type of approach to policymaking. And I'm already thinking about next session of Republican prime co-sponsors on legislation, because this isn't about getting credit, it's about getting things done, and that requires working across the aisle.
The moon lacks an atmosphere, and the moon does not rotate.
We got it right.
One side always faces the sun, while one side is always dark.
No.
Yeah.
That was right. That was right.
They just said the sun.
Did you not hear us say that the moon does not rotate?
No, you just said the sun.
When your mother said the moon rotates, I said no, it does not.
I don't know. I think Liam has a good point. This is a 2-sentence response, and you guys gave a 2-word response. Judge?
She's not a unbiased opinion. Veto.
One shouldn't just infer that you said the sun, meaning that the moon does not rotate. So that should have been a 2-sentence response. I say they get no points.
And the winners are Liam and Lane.
No, they have to answer a hard one. They have to answer one of the hard ones. No, we have like a daggum college question.
No.
They have to answer one of the hard ones.
No, but they were already leading.
Because, right now there's a lot of conversations in all circles, I assume in both the Republican as well as the Democrat, like, let's get people involved, let's engage people, let's bring them to the table. Is it harder to be a candidate today than it was 4 years ago?
Possibly. I get asked often either why don't you stand up to Trump or why don't you help out Trump more? Well, I'm elected to the Florida State Legislature. I've never met Trump. Like, my job is not to my job is to represent my constituents, represent the and as a Republican, advance a conservative agenda in Tallahassee. I feel like we've done a great job since 2014 and even before then of,
Debatable.
You have definitely advanced an agenda.
Right.
Whether we agree if it was great or not, that's debatable.
Right. And so, in this latest episode, I always try to do what I think is right. A couple nights ago, I woke up at like 4 o'clock. I turned on the news because there wasn't anything good on Investigation ID.
Aww,
and so
something good on Investigation ID, Chris. Jeez.
So I saw the tape of the rally, and that was my first time that I saw it. And my first reaction is, this is nuts. So I, went on, Facebook, and I did a post and basically saying, a chant, that chant is racist. The president should put a stop to it. Yada, yada, yada. And I tweeted it out. And then whenever I woke up the next morning, I had all kinds of notifications and it's amazing. And just like Ernest said with his column, people totally missed the point. I was getting responses of, well, what about what Omar said about Israel, about America and yada, yada, yada. White men are under attack and, all of this other kind of stuff, and totally missed the point of, and my point being that even people that you don't like and that you don't agree with still have First Amendment protections. And that chant was directed at a woman who was born in Somalia. There's no doubting that fact. And so you can't, just because we don't like what Representative Omar stands for or says, and I don't like what she stands for or what she says, doesn't mean that we can deport her, or deport anybody like her. And so, to me, that's a very easy stand to take. It didn't, it wasn't courageous. It wasn't, it's just cut and dry, the right thing to do. Yeah, it's called having human decency.
So that we go
Chris is like, I take it back
to the end of the road.
Woo! Till I can't let you go. It's a natural. You belong to me. I belong to you.
I try to use our time together to be a space, which is what it's designed to be, where different viewpoints can come together and we can learn and think differently and not, use Twitter as our guidebook, but actual thoughts and different viewpoints. And so it's really helpful. Listening to Carla articulate the impeachment process and hearings and removal and all that stuff that we've been talking about for months. I don't remember, we recorded an episode probably in February or March where, you spoke very eloquently about this as well. And so, I like the chance to also sit here, just like our listeners do, and learn and see what we are talking about, what we're seeing, what we're feeling, and not just responding to memes as our point of education. So all that being said, I think everybody has made really, really important and salient points. For me, as somebody who looks at the social ramifications of language, like Carla, but also how those affect our culture, that is what is phenomenal to me. I won't ever sit here and pretend to be some foreign policy guru or have some greater knowledge on those implications. I agree that the closer I get to government, what Carla said is very much true, that there is a lot of things that are the way business is done because it keeps... I often refer to elected officials as, we put enough Band-Aids up to keep the dam from breaking, but keep our constituents afraid enough that they still feel like they need us. And I think that all parties do it. And it's one of the reasons that I think many of our problems haven't been solved, because people are afraid to make themselves obsolete, which is not what would happen in my worldview. But I think that that's a lot of what we do. So we Band-Aid, we duct tape through problems that could be solved. But I have asked every elected official I know and other people who've been deeply entrenched in government for a long time, because this seems different to me. Everything about from his candidacy to his election to the response, both negative and positive, seems different than anything I've ever seen before. And I don't know if that's a blind perspective or not. And everybody I have asked, people who have held office for decades, people who are newly elected, people who are scholars, all say this is different. And so I am interested to see how this continues to affect our culture, and reflectively how we'll look back on this time period.
Well, I think it depends on how much people value a free and fair election system. And there is a cynicism when it comes to elections. And I think there are a lot of people who are like, oh, elections have been fixed already. What's the big deal if he asks the Ukraine to impact it? But there are others of us who are like, no, at the core of this entire republic is a free and fair election system, and we must be vanguards of that system. We must protect it at all times. And without that, and without a belief that our election system is fair and free, what do we have? We don't have the America that we've been taught to love and respect. And so that's what makes this so serious.
You wrote a book in high school about the moral compass of America, and oh my gosh, you have been living a lie.
She looked at me and said, I've never kissed the son of a senator while I was a page in Tallahassee. Who's not going to fall for that?
I've never.
I am sorry. I am a human, and I was not married.
This is the greatest story I've ever heard in my whole life.
I've never kissed the son of a senator.
I kissed her. I felt awful. I told on myself.
It would have been awkward.
She would not talk to me for like 2 weeks at school.
Well, I guess y'all can tell how that went. Chris's skills hopefully have improved.
And yet he's still single.
I was able to get the popular opinion on my side because I told on myself. I could have gotten away with it, but I had a conscience. And so I told on myself.
No, you didn't have a conscience. This girl wouldn't talk to you anymore, so you're like, crap.
But because I told on myself for being, for kissing the hot page girl when I was in high school. And who I'm still Facebook friends with, by the way.
I'm down.
Did she listen to the podcast?
I don't know.
Oh, she should.
And
It'll be a good episode to start.
I asked her if I could go see her that afternoon. She said yes. So I went to the florist. I got a stuffed animal. I had a poem pre-written.
Like you bought off the internet, or like you actually wrote it yourself?
I pre-wrote it.
Okay.
Remember, he was a writer back in the day.
I got a dozen red roses.
Did you get bunk beds?
I went home
A set of bunk
and
beds
I
would have been
changed
great.
into a suit. And I walked to her house. Even though I could drive, I still walked to her house.
Wait a minute. So your girlfriend was in
my
Tallahassee
suit.
too?
You're
I think she's ruining
I
the story.
walked to her house in my suit, so by the time I got there, I was sweating profusely, because that was an important part of the story. Because I wanted her to know I thought about my, sorry. So when she opened the door, I hit play, and Bended Knee started playing, and I gave her the poem. She started crying. She forgave me. And then a month later, after we graduated, we broke up because she said she couldn't trust me in Orlando. But the important part was she forgave me.
Well, I think that goes with everything. So, I mean, when and I wrote a paper about this a while ago for our conference, but when we look at immigration, the people that we decide to highlight are these like perfect citizens. I think this myth of the perfect citizen or the perfect immigrant. When they come to this country, they have to have like 3 doctorates. They've got to have a cure for cancer, and they've got to like save animals. It's like, what about the regular people that might not be such perfect citizens? Don't they deserve a chance at citizenship too? Don't they deserve a chance to be here? Like, I mean, so that goes with, and with GLBTQ people, especially on television. It's changing a little bit now, but in the 90s, in order for the GLBTQ community to have representation on television, these people had to be perfect. They were saintly, they were amazing, they were smart. I mean, they had to be absolutely perfect. And that goes with, people of color, et cetera, et cetera. That's changing a little bit now in media, where you start to see kind of like, people having kind of a multifaceted personality, but especially with, and that's with television and film. But I mean, just how we talk every day, the people that we choose to highlight in speeches and in campaign ads and stuff like that are always these perfect people. It's like, what about the people that aren't perfect? Like, I'm not perfect. Do I not deserve, is my life not worth just as much as someone else's? And someone might say no. I don't know.
So joining us right now is Ray's president, Brian All, who's taking out time from his busy schedule to spend a couple of minutes with us. And Brian, we're so excited to have you here and share some thoughts about the team and some of the philanthropy that you guys are involved in. And Becca, you have a personal connection to the Rays philanthropic efforts.
I do. This is one of the things I'm super excited about having. May I call you Brian?
Yes,
okay.
Please do. Hello, everybody.
I like to be familiar.
My maiden voyage on a podcast.
Your maiden voyage?
I think so.
If not, let's just roll with it. That sounds great.
Let's go.
So I'm a fan of yours twofold. Number one, because the Rays do an amazing job lifting up all of our little leagues in the area. And as a little league baseball mom who went from a sports is a no to a sports is a go, and that's now my home away from home, seeing the opportunities y'all provide for so many children who wouldn't have it, that doesn't get talked about enough. So I'd love to hear about why that's philosophically important to you. And the other thing is, I love that your family does so much, you personally. My brother lives in Old Northeast, and you guys do a great job really trying to lift up public schools. I mean, I know you're a former teacher, and so I don't know if education's just in your blood, but the bottom line is you seem to care about the small people.
Yeah, you just threw like 6 questions at them. Let's start with the Little League involvement. What do you guys have there?
Well, I think the most obvious thing we do is we donate uniforms to just about every little league in Tampa Bay. And what that does is kind of reduce the financial pressure on the leagues to do that, which I think allows them to offer more scholarships, and everything flows from there. You end up with a lot more kids participating, a lot more diversity in the leagues, and there's nothing but good things for that. There's a selfish motive for us. The more kids like baseball, the better the Rays are going to be in the long haul. And so we think it's a really important place for us to invest. We think the game of baseball is a great game. We want to spread it as far and wide as we can in the region, and the best way to do that is to invest in the children.
He just did a ride along. He's basically been deputized.
Chris Latvala, Private Eye.
That actually a private eye.
What?
That ride along was fun.
I'm sure it was. I am sure it was.
Like Live PD.
It kind of was. Like, we busted a young man that had some warrants. And it started with 2 kids frolicking in a pool.
Like kids, like frolicking, like
Were they
kids,
doing
or
what
like
people used
adults?
to do in the hot tubs in Gainesville?
I was gonna say like adults frolicking in the hot tub,
Yeah.
or kids like playing.
Well, and if back in the hot tub they weren't wearing any clothes, that's what they were.
I would buy that. I would buy that these hot tub establishments got a little sketch.
And then those kids ended up inadvertently getting one of their friends in trouble.
In a little East Coast
Yeah,
swing.
I would have butterflies in my stomach meeting boys to men.
Going on.
Ba-do-do-do-do-do-do.
Do you think they would let us sing a tune with them on the podcast?
No, I do not.
I'm gonna. Oh, can you imagine how great it would be to tell the saltine story to them?
That'd be.
4th through November 6th.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, that's
So it's
after the
after.
Clearwater. Oh, that's not good.
Too bad I'm considering running against people in Clearwater, or else we can't really ask them for like a press pass. Or, like, I'd be like, "Excuse me, excuse me, Commissioner."
How are we raising men in this country? And why aren't we doing more, or is there something that we can do at a much younger age? You know, we talk about social
Yes.
and emotional learning.
Absolutely.
We got to get men to stop thinking about women as possessions and start thinking about them as people.
Well, in this case, he had been abused by his parents. And I think, hurt people hurt other people.
Sure.
So I feel like breaking that cycle of violence early on and then being able to deal with it is
But-
also one of the things that we should
I
focus
think
on too.
social media
for sure.
has given rise to this abuse of power, if you will, and we have young men who are, they're doing this because they can get away with it. That's why, and I think you guys may disagree, but that's why I want to take away the anonymity, because they're doing it because
It's still freedom of
it's a
speech,
power
though.
trip.
But it's still freedom of speech in a lot of venues, and Greek Rank and websites like that
And I
are
guarantee
businesses.
you, if you had to use your name like the Times does on their website, it would be completely different. Because I remember when anybody could post on the Times,
Of course.
and there would be dozens of comments on every article, and people would have all kinds of nasty things to say. Now on the articles, hardly anybody comments because you have to put your name.
Yeah, and to be clear, it's worse for women. And I saw a segment just a couple of weeks ago about women sports writers, and one of them was Sarah Spain from ESPN. And what they did, they brought in these guys to read the tweets that they had received. And they were like, oh, it's going to be fun. It's going to be like mean tweets. And about halfway in, they start reading these tweets that are just unbelievable. I hope, there were guys writing things like, I hope someone kills you and you die. One of the writers had written about her own personal experience with rape, and someone tweeted to her, I hope someone rapes you again. I mean,
I don't know
what was
any
so
woman
interesting
who doesn't
is that-
get rape threats online.
And what was so interesting is that
visible.
the guys who they asked to read it were almost, if not more emotional than the women who they were first directed to. It was so hard for them to read it and gain a grasp of what these women face every day as women sports writers. And it's hard, and I would tell you, oh, I'm a journalist. I get mean emails, and I never received
Not like that.
I
But
get
that's-
mean emails, but it's never been anything like that.
Yeah.
But the difference is because, and this is where I do a lot of my work, is number one, we really need to redefine manhood. There is tremendous, and this could be a whole nother thing. There's tremendous pressure on being a certain male archetype, and that needs to change. Strength is using your power for good. Since we're paying tribute to Chris all episode, the fact that, when there's an opportunity for him to use his elected capacity to learn about this issue and do more, he just made the offer. That's a real man.
Yeah, it is.
That's when we need to change what we call a quote real man. We need to stop thinking that talking to men and bringing men into the conversation is somehow not plausible. We need to show men that their strength is is a good thing, and it doesn't have to be for hurting, and that we need to reframe macho, and that will start to shift the paradigm, because all of the things I've sat with literally millions of students, and women are never surprised about these conversations, and only men are. And so they need to be a part of them, and we need to hold our communities accountable, and balance the pressure and oppression paradigm that we have across the two most commonly acknowledged genders.
But I think the vast majority of men in our society have a very loving.
Most men are good men,
right?
But Chris,
I mean, certainly, and it crosses all socioeconomic.
Absolutely.
We're not saying that,
but would you not say that there are things that you think about differently because of many of the conversations we've had about
you and I?
Yeah,
you've taught me all kinds of stuff.
Okay, first of all, Showgirls is one of my favorite movies, and I have
God.
And let's talk about this. Hold on,
Carla.
If you
God.
no, listen to this. No, Showgirls is one of my favorite movies, and it is because
She said it again.
directors. Listen to me. Listen. There's a very reasoned academic argument for this. So Showgirls has become. There's an article in the Atlantic, and there's also been several articles on NPR, and I can find them and I will post them on how the cult classic. It's same thing with Scarface. It was a flop in the theater, and it became this cult classic. There's a guy. He's a very gay man, and he is very. Flamboyant is probably not the best word, but he's very
Feminine?
he's a little flamboyant, and he has a job going around the country doing voiceover with Showgirls. So you'll do a public screening, and he'll do the voiceover on the director's cut of the special 15th anniversary edition of Showgirls. You can play the movie with his analysis, and it is probably one of the funniest things you can buy. Money, you can't spend enough money to laugh this hard. He is so funny. And I dated a guy that had the 20th anniversary of Showgirls. He's like, no. He's a cultural studies professor. He was kind of a jerk, but whatever. And he was like, you have to watch this. It was probably one of the funniest things I have ever seen, because he takes you step by step of where the director could have gone the right direction, but they went the wrong direction. And every single choice is wrong.
So you like Showgirls? It's so bad that it's good.
But the way this guy takes you through with the commentary is one of the funniest things. And I have been wanting to get him to Tampa to do a live show at the Tampa Theater for 10 years. He is so funny, and he does live shows in Seattle all the time. And he basically says at every single point the director made a decision, and it was the wrong decision. Out of 5 decisions that they could have made, he made the wrong one each time, and it is really funny.
Watch party, set it up.
We could totally do a watch party because it's hysterical.
Yeah, and all your stupid little polls that you've been putting up, Carla keeps voting for you. And don't think I haven't noticed that. Do not think I haven't noticed that. Ernie abstains from the voting.
No, he didn't. He voted for me in the first one. They all did.
I don't think I did.
No,
I think you did. Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did.
No, Chris, no.
Even your high school best friend,
I did.
my future BFF, UCF Kent, said that was real deal.
Oh, shout out to UCF Kent. We love him.
Bobby Joe Long, Tampa serial killer, was executed by the state of Florida on May 23rd. It received a lot of media attention, and I was wondering where you guys stand in terms of the death penalty. Do you think it's a good thing? Do you understand the victims who say that this has brought them peace, or do you worry that the state could execute an innocent person?
I mean, I worry about that. I mean, I think that my problem with the death penalty is you have to be right 100% of the time. Now, do I think this guy's guilty? Sure. Inject him. Cheer, cry, whatever, do whatever you want, do whatever you need to do. But I mean, I think you have to be right 100% of the time in terms of policy. And do I think this guy is guilty? Yeah. Do I think he should have gotten the death penalty? Yeah, because we know for a fact, but there's so many cases out there. I mean, that you just don't know. And there's so much reasonable doubt, and there's so many failures and cracks in the justice system that you just don't know. And it's not right 100% of the time.
I think that an article that I read recently about this guy hit it spot on, and I think it might have even come from the Tampa Bay Times, and it said, this is the reason why we have the death penalty is for this guy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if anybody deserves a death penalty, it's Bobby Joe Long.
Yeah, and I saw My Favorite Murder did a live show, which is it's a really good podcast. I don't listen to as much as I used to, but My Favorite Murder did a live show at Tampa Theater, and I went and they did this case. So they did the Bobby Joe Long case, and the woman who escaped and became a Hillsborough County deputy was awesome. And you just to listen to her story, how she, got abducted by this guy. And the first thing she did when she was in the bathroom was just touch everything, even though she was blindfolded. And because she had suffered years of abuse, she was tied up on the bed. And when he was like, I want you to be my girlfriend, she was like, okay, I'll be your girlfriend. What do you want me to do? And she talked him into letting her go. So it was just a really incredible story of, somebody just using their wits and their prowess and just being able to escape.
Right. The woman you're referring to is Lisa Nolan, who
awesome.
was able to escape, and she's now a deputy with the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office. And
she went to the execution.
Well, and
I hope so.
She said she hasn't had a good night's rest since Bobby Joe Long kidnapped her, and now she will be able to sleep well. And so when you hear that, certainly your empathy has to go out to the people who have survived heinous people, like Bobby Joe Long, who was convicted of killing 8 people. He confessed to killing 10 people, and it's believed he sexually assaulted many more women. But at the same time, as you said, Carla, I worry about an innocent person getting executed. I worry about an overzealous prosecutor or police detectives who make up their mind before they gather the evidence that this person is guilty. I think it would be, even in 2019, easy for an innocent person to end up on death row.
Did you see the bill being promoted by Darryl Roussan? And I think it was Adam Hattersley, Becca?
Give me a little more information. I don't think so.
Darryl Roussan's filed Jordan's Law today in the Senate.
Here it is. State Senator Darryl Roussan, Democrat St. Petersburg, is filing legislation to prohibit discrimination against gay students by private schools receiving public money in the form of tuition vouchers. Roussan said this bill will be known as the Becca Teeter Bill, responding to actually I just made that part up, but that was an issue that Becca was on very early, and now it has a chance of becoming a bill. You gonna get behind it, Chris?
I'll take a look at it.
He's got to wait to see what his envelope says. Anna Eskamani is a part of that.
Yeah,
bill.
maybe it was Anna Eskamani who was a part of it, who is a friend of the podcast.
I am, as y'all know, I have been beating this drum for a while, but my early readings of it, I don't believe it includes discrimination for religion. So I'm disappointed about that, especially when, Representative Fine has fought so hard for equity for all the Jewish boys and girls in the land, and I would just like them to have that opportunity and their fellow other religious minorities. So Representative Fine, thank you, and I look forward to you championing equality for all the little Jewish boys and girls and Muslim boys and girls and non-religious identifying boys and girls and all the other millions of religions that I can't think of right now.
Oh, thank you. Samuel
They
has
are so
brought us
beautiful.
some cookies.
We brought you a few goodies.
However, you did not bring any Lizzo cookies.
Did not. We have done so many of these in the last few days. We planned on this shake running for 12 days. We sold out in the first 3.
Wow.
Tell us about the shake.
The shake, it's our it's a Fruity Pebbles shake with our cereal milk. It has a cotton candy, has a rainbow lollipop, Bacon Babes cupcake, and it has a Lizzo cookie from at PD Cakes, who is an amazing, truly wonderful local cookie decorator. And we've teamed up with him for Lizzo's concert in the area. And
where are y'all located at?
We were at 1701 North Franklin Avenue. We are just north of downtown Tampa.
In the hall on Franklin.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. There's a little game going on right now on the internet. Everyone's kind of playing. You Google Florida Man and your birthday. We've done this. What did you guys come up with? Carla?
Predictably, Florida man blows off part of his hand in July 4th firework accident.
So for my birthday, from Flagler County, Florida man rigged door in attempt to electrocute pregnant wife.
Oh my God.
On October 16th, live from Palm Bay, Florida, and how appropriate is this? Florida man sets self on fire while trying to burn a cross.
Well, mine was Florida man exposes himself at the Dollar General store. And I think I win the prize. He not
I wonder what he
only
would do for the people at Target. Really bring it out.
not only was he masturbating at the Dollar General store in Mims, Florida, but he was following a woman around with his penis exposed because he thought she was attractive.
Well, if that is the way to my heart. I don't know what it is.
I want to rock right now. I'm Rob Bass and I came to get down. I'm not internationally known, but I'm known to rock a microphone because I get stupid. I mean outrageous. Stay away from me if you're contagious because I'm a winner. No, not a loser. Being MC is what I choose. Ladies love me. Girls adore me. I mean, even the ones who never saw me like the way that I rhyme and I show. The reason why, man, I don't know. So let's go, cuz. That's all I got.
Takes two to make a thing go right.